Hi everyone and welcome along. Yes, this is just that tiny bit different to our normal intro. I've got my handheld camera, which some of you will have seen from the Chelsea Flower Show vlog. Thanks so much for your lovely comments. So we are painting today, we're doing a tutorial, but I thought because the weather's getting a little bit better, we maybe can head out into the garden and find some of the real stuff that we'll be painting today. And Ant can just set up our studio for the actual painting. So come out into the garden with me and we're going to go into the greenhouse. Now, in my book, A Year of Watercolour, we track the seasons. Oh, that was great timing. It just started raining. We track the seasons and we see what's growing through the garden, what birds, animals that we start to see around. And of course, the seasons are always going to shift and do their own thing, and the weather surprises us at times. It's still raining and it's mid to late May, but in my book there is a lovely tutorial for nasturtiums, and I've never grown them before, and although it's in the summer, I thought well, I've got a flower, so I'm going to show you my little nasturtium plant. And oh look, here we go. I've got my first flower. Oh, and another one, another bud just growing behind it. So I thought, let's have a little go at something seasonal, inspired by my book, A Year of Watercolour, and we can just enjoy what's actually in front of us. What else have we got in the greenhouse? We've got some tomatoes coming up. Not a huge amount else just yet, but the beauty is our filming studio is right next to all these lovely things growing. And of course we have Ant here.
Hello.
Just setting up for filming. And that is where the magic happens. So all that's left for me to say is grab your paints and let's get started. A Year of Watercolour is my third watercolour book, and it's full of wonderful tutorials that track the seasons. And the one I'm looking for today is nasturtiums. So I showed you outside, we've got one flower growing, and the variety that I'm growing outside is called Alaskan Salmon. So it's got a lovely pinky peachy yellow quality. The ones I did in the book are more sort of classic red, yellow and orange. But what we're going to do today, because I love an opportunity to get one of my books out, bring it to life on the channel, is we're going to paint the one in my greenhouse, because the whole point of A Year of Watercolour is it helps you track through the seasons, spot things in your garden or sort of out and about, and then you can maybe take a few photos, do a few sketches, bring it back and have a go. So I'll put this to one side. But if this piques your interest and you love the idea of maybe a bit more seasonal watercolour, you can get signed copies of this book and all my other books in my Etsy shop and my website store. So let's move on to my current nasturtium. So I'm going to just sort of do it, I just do a little one here, a little soupçon, if you will. So I've got an 8x6 inch piece of cold pressed watercolour paper, and I am going to draw in some wiggly stems. I mean, they really do wobble and wiggle around. And yeah, we'll sort of leave it at that. And for the open-faced flower, I'm going to draw a little circle there, and I'm going to draw in my little bud as well. So I'm going to just put a curve like that, which is going to help me sort of see which way the shape is going. And then I've got some leaves which are going to grow on here, and we can sort of draw in the rough shape of these wonderful leaves. And let's get painting. So what colours are we going to use? Well, we're going to need green gold and our sap green for sure. And then up here with the flowers, we're going to have some cadmium yellow, buff titanium, lemon yellow, and I think cadmium orange, cadmium red, and a bit of permanent rose as well. So we'll just get those woken up. So we can take a nice large size 8 pointed round brush, and I'm going to begin with some really dilute green for my leaves, because the leaves on the salmon, Alaskan salmon nasturtium have this amazing range of sort of marbled colours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in this leaf, and you can see I've just left a few little bits of unpainted space, but that's because I'm just going to sort of dilute my colour right down and just paint in some really pale greens alongside some unpainted sections as well. I'm trying to make sure that my outer edge of the leaf is at least painted a tiny bit. And we're just going to be gradually building up those colours as we go. I'm then going to take a little bit of green gold, and I just want to fill in the centre of that flower there. Because the nasturtium flower has the most incredible sort of structure to it, the petals curl right back in on themselves, and there's this sort of cave-like centre right back in the recess. So that's going to look fantastic. And then for the bud flower up here, this is the one that's going to most closely resemble the actual flower colour from the beginning. So let's have a look. Colour-wise, I've got some buff titanium. Now, buff titanium's a colour that not everybody has. I find if you want to achieve buff titanium, just really dilute down some yellow ochre, maybe knock in like a tiny bit of Paynes Grey just to cool it down, and you'll get a good buff titanium. I'm going to add a bit of lemon yellow to that, and a little bit of cadmium orange just to warm it up a bit, and I think that's a really nice colour. And what I'm going to do is with my size 4 brush, I'm going to paint a lovely little sort of teardrop shape. There's quite a lot of colour on there already. And then I'm going to do this like tadpole tail. Just off the back of it like that. It's such a bizarre flower, like the way it grows, it's really amazing. Even the open face flowers have these amazing tails as well. So that's looking really, really nice. We just need to let things dry because we're going to be building things up in layers, but I'm pretty sure that my leaves have started to dry, so I can now come back in with another layer. So I've got a slightly smaller brush, my size 4 brush, than what I painted on the first layer, and my green is just that little bit more concentrated, and I'm now going to direct my colour and shading from the centre outwards, and they're going to be probably bits of unpainted space that I paint over the top of, but that's okay. I just want you to try and feel quite free with the brush. And what's great about the book is even though I can only sort of cover one variety of each plant or bird or flower, it gives you the skills and the basic sort of techniques to be able to then come in and sort of find new versions and paint your own and have all the skills applied that you know what to do. I'm now going to move on to starting to paint in the petals of my nasturtium, my open-faced flower, and it's going to sort of overlap in behind my leaf. There are 5 petals on a nasturtium, and the top 2 and have a sort of distinct kind of pairing, and then the bottom 3 look similar too. So you've got sort of 2 different sets of petals, but essentially 5 petals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to begin using my same petal colour I used for this. I'm going to begin by fanning out a top left-hand petal with my size 4 brush. So that's one of my top half petals, and I'm going to put in a very, very, very sparing amount of Cadmium Red, just where it starts to open up there. I'm going to now place in my bottom central petal. I'm just going to sort of create it up to the edge of the leaf there. And there's just a slightly softer peachy colour to this one, so I've mixed a little bit of permanent rose, cadmium orange to make a nice blush tone, if I can say that, and I'm just going to drop some of that in. It's hardly a difference, but as we build up our petals and colours, we'll soon start to see a bit of a notable difference between the top and bottom. So I'm going to let those dry, and then I'm going to layer in the different petals and get them all overlapping and looking gorgeous, but I just want to make sure that they're dry before we bring in the next one. And what I can do with a little bit of this peachy pink is just drop in a little bit of that to the top of the petal whilst it's still drying. So I'm building it up, I've got the rest of the petals in, and I'm also just really enjoying placing in another concentrated layer of Sap Green onto the leaf. I'm just trying to think in terms of sort of segments of a pie, in terms of how I'm painting these on. And not being scared to sort of go over what I've already painted. And then sort of mixing up my brush strokes, maybe some streaks and some little dots as well as big blobs. That's one of the things I love about nasturtiums, is the variety of types. You get all sorts of different sort of finishes on both the petals and the leaves, and they're edible as well. You can use the petals and the leaves in salads. They've got a sort of peppery taste. So what's not to love? My mum keeps on telling me they grow everywhere, they go completely wild and bonkers, but at the moment I'm quite up for that. Okay, so we're just letting everything dry nice and sort of slowly, not rushing in too much, but what we can do is start to paint in some of the stems. So I get some green gold into that mix, and I think we'll get ourselves a slightly smaller brush to manage these fine lines. 4/10, that's definitely a smaller brush. And I'm going to start to paint along my pencil lines, and with the 4/10 brush you can go really nice and fine, so you can afford to do a nice sort of two-liner to get that nice bit of unpainted space down the middle. So I'm just going to travel up the stems and just continue on with this approach. Okay, it's time to start doing a little bit more on our petals. So I'm going to keep the green gold and the 4/10 brush, and firstly I'm just going to define the sort of inner sections of the petals here. And then take a little bit more of my cadmium orange and permanent rose mixture, but I'm going to just take a slightly more concentrated on a small brush section, and I'm going to start from the centre of these bottom petals, and I want to create some rather lovely fine lines sort of coming from the centre of that petal, and they're going to sort of create these lovely veins down the petal, and you can decide which petals are over the front of which. So for the bottom three, this is how we're going to sort of add in the lovely details. So very much starting from the centre, try and get your lines as fine and delicate as possible. This is the way we sort of slightly differentiate from the flowers that we've painted in the book, because they don't have quite this sort of colourway on them. So the bottom three petals are done with the peachy mix, and then I've just got some cadmium red, and I've done the same from the top. But of course cadmium red is a strong colour, so what I felt was quite a good idea is once you've placed in the beginnings of your lines, then I'm going to clean my brush off and just with a clean wet brush sort of extend the colour. It's a little bit hard as a left-hander, I'm sort of trying to push rather than pull, and maybe just a tiny bit more sort of red on the brush. And then what I'm going to do with my size 2 brush back, I'm just going to mix up a tiny bit more of my original petal colour. So there's my original petal colour. I'm going to take a bit more of this blush tone, just pop it in there to just get it a little bit more combined. And with a very little amount on my brush, I'm now going to just kind of scribble in from the outer edges, just for a little bit extra, because the petals are so sort of crumply and textured that I just think doing this really helps them. And do it on the top as well. So I'm always coming from the top down. And I think that is the magic touch. That's where it really comes alive. And then we've got our extra little bud flower. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it just a hint of a green gold sweep. And then we'll get a little bit of the red in the pinky mix, and I just want to add just a few dabs of it there. Now this is very nearly done. All we need to do is add some of the finishing touches. So in the centre of the open face flower, we've got some cadmium yellow sepals. We've also got some rather bizarre looking, what I'm going to call them teeth, because I can't 100% remember oh, they're lateral hairs, that's it, I'm just checking my book for to remember. There are these amazing little hairs on the bottom petals which you can't really see just using buff titanium, but I'm going to start with buff titanium and then we'll put a bit of shadow on them. But there's all the extra little things lurking in your plants. And we're going to take some Sap Green and use it as a bit of a shadow. Just running down the side. Just here and there on the stem, especially if you've got an overlap and you just want to define that. I've mixed up a tiny little bit of shadow mix, and with my 4/10 brush I'm just going to define those lateral hairs a little bit more. Then if I take some Cadmium Yellow and just mix in a little bit of that shadow, I can use it to create that little underside on the sepals, and then just here and there it can be very useful. And if I take a slightly larger brush, size 2, and get it really quite dilute, so the shadow mix is Burnt Sienna and Paynes Grey, sorry if I didn't say that, and I'm just going to place in a tiny bit on my petals there, and on my leaves just a little bit here and there. Because the leaves are so sort of wavy and wobbly that there are going to be sort of edges that curl down. And it just helps with the overall 3D effect of the piece. So that's finished now. We're just going to let it dry and we can rub out the pencil. And here we have the finished product. I'm so pleased with that. I just think they're really, really lovely things to paint. So don't forget to find the Nasturtium project in A Year of Watercolour around page 80. There's so much more to look at, and we've got strawberry plants around this time of year, lots of wonderful weeds, dandelions, buttercups and daisies, all sorts of lovely things to be looking out for. We've got elderflower there with a little elderflower cordial recipe. This makes such a lovely companion to the year as the seasons change, and a lovely gift if there's someone that you think would absolutely love it. Every time you sort of support the channel by liking a video or watching us or buying a book, it makes a huge amount of difference to us, and I'm forever grateful. So don't forget to like, comment on the video, let me know how you got on with that one. If you've got nasturtiums of your own growing in your garden and you can paint those varieties, tag us at the Winton Paper Co on Instagram to show me your work, and we'll see you again next time. Bye!